The induction ceremony was a bore, as always. From my throne-like recliner on the main dais, I watched the procession of stiff, nervous initiates. They all had the same look, a mix of terror and ambition. Old Provost Abernathy droned on, his voice a low hum that could put a bear to sleep. I, Julian, the supposed luminary of the Ethelgard range, was amusing myself by telekinetically stealing peanuts from Elder Thornton's bowl and seeing how many I could stack on his bald head before he noticed. My current record was 7. The name they called next made me pause. Caleb Vance. I leaned forward, my languid posture straightening for the first time all morning. There he was, the kid with an aura so bright it practically hummed in the air, a raw, untamed power that made the other initiates look like flickering candles next to a bonfire. He walked up to the dais, head bowed, the picture of humility. I could feel his nervousness, a tight coil in his gut. It was adorable. I let the peanuts on Thornton's head tumble and clapped my hands, dusting off the shells that littered my velvet robe. The kid looked up, and his eyes, a deep, steady brown, met mine. I decided then and there, he was mine. I grinned, leaning on my chin, and told the assembly that this was the prime cut of the year, a real looker. I saw the kid's ears turn a faint shade of pink. He knelt with textbook precision and introduced himself as Caleb Vance, paying his respects. I waved a dismissive hand, telling him to knock off the formal nonsense. I explained that, in my domain, we only had one rule. I paused for dramatic effect, leaning in close until I could smell the clean scent of pine soap on his skin. I winked and suggested, in my most charmingly persuasive tone, that he try calling me Dad. A collective gasp went through the hall. I could practically hear Provost Abernathy's jaw unhinging. A few of the senior students in the wings choked back laughter. The kid, Caleb, just stared at me, his brain clearly having short-circuited. His face was a delightful battleground of warring emotions. To call or not to call? I watched, fascinated, as pragmatism won out over dignity. He probably figured, correctly, that defying me would lead to a world of misery. The kid took a deep, fortifying breath, his shoulders squaring as if he were facing an executioner. That, the word was a cannon blast in the dead-silent hall. For a beat, nothing happened. Then, a snort escaped me, followed by a full-blown, gut-busting laugh that sent me tumbling right out of my ridiculously plush recliner. I landed on the floor, back arched, pounding the marble with my fist. This kid was a keeper, a real gem. I howled that I'd hit the jackpot. Peanut shells scattered everywhere. Abernathy was rubbing his temples, looking like he was one step away from a major coronary event. I saw Caleb, still kneeling, frozen in place, watching me with a look of profound horror. He was probably realizing his life as he knew it was over. He wasn't wrong. He became my first and only apprentice, and my initial hunch was frighteningly accurate. While other mentors were imparting ancient wisdom and demonstrating elegant sword forms, our first lesson involved levitating a single peanut. I explained, with the gravity of a philosopher, that he needed to make it complete a triple axel before landing perfectly in my open mouth. This, I lectured, was the principle of integrating magic into life, making the mundane sublime. Then I choked on a peanut and spent a full minute coughing my lungs out. When we traveled, other masters rode currents of pure energy or soared on sleek, crafted gliders. I had the tin tuna. It was an old, dented, 14-foot aluminum fishing boat, complete with swivel seats and a non-functional outboard motor on the back. I insisted it had superior cargo capacity and stability. In a pinch, it could double as a shield. I wanted to know what those flimsy gliders could do besides look pretentious. I'll never forget the look on Caleb's face the first time I grabbed him by the collar and hauled him into it. The expressions of the other students were a complex tapestry of pity, disbelief, and poorly suppressed hysterics. As the tin tuna shuddered into the air, the wind whistling past its hull, Caleb clung to the gunwale for dear life. I stood at the prow, arms outstretched, bellowing for my magnificent vessel to fly. He weakly asked if we couldn't use something a bit more conventional. I looked at him, genuinely perplexed by the question. What wasn't conventional about this? I stomped on the boat's floor, pointing out how solid it was. I told him it was an investment in the future. When he found a partner and had a couple of kids, the whole family could fit. He was 18 and looked horrified at the mention of children, and also deeply confused by my math. He tried to argue that the issue wasn't its structural integrity, but the fact that it was, fundamentally, a fishing boat. I adopted a wounded expression, accusing him of being shallow and materialistic. I told him he was blind to the elegant curvature of its hull, its robust texture, the rich patina it had acquired over years of service. It was understated, I explained. A strategic advantage. Enemies would see us coming in this thing and underestimate us. I rubbed my hands together with a conspiratorial glee. I could tell he had given up. He buried his face in his hands, trying to become invisible to the pointing and laughing students below. Social ruin was a cornerstone of my teaching philosophy. The tin tuna landed with a gentle bump on my private mountain peak, Ramshackle Ridge. I'd carved the name myself onto a leaning slab of granite at the entrance, with a little addendum scrawled underneath. Abandon all dignity, ye who enter here. It explained why the only other residents were a few shame-resistant blue jays. I hopped out, tripped on my own robe, and pretended it was a deliberate, stylish dismount. I told my boy, my apprentice, to get out. He crawled out of the boat, looking like his very soul had been battered by the wind. The days that followed were an immersion in my unique brand of magical training. While others mated on the cosmic flow, Caleb mated on the joyful aura I exuded while snacking. While they practiced blade work until their arms cramped, he perfected the art of choreographing peanut ballets, ensuring each one pirouette gracefully into my waiting mouth. I would lie in my hammock, offering directorial notes. He was to add more flair, more passion. Snacking was an art form. I endured his stoic suffering with great satisfaction. I once made him try to orchestrate 50 peanuts at once into the shape of a bald eagle. I had to admit the kid had a terrifying degree of talent for it. His control over his aura became precise to a microscopic level. It paid off when we ran into a pack of rogue mages down in the valley. Their leader, a nasty piece of work with a sneer and too much cheap magical paraphernalia, conjured a swirling vortex of shadow energy. Our traveling companions from the other peaks drew their weapons, their faces grim. Caleb's hand went to his own sword, his knuckles white. My eyes lit up. I nudged him and told him it was showtime. He looked at me, confused, and I clarified he should use the peanut formation, the eagle one. I wanted him to show this Philistin what real art looked like. He looked like he was about to have an aneurysm, but the shadow mage wasn't waiting. A serpent of darkness lunged toward us. On pure instinct, Caleb's hand shot out. A shower of peanuts from his travel pouch flew into the air, his aura snapping around them. They swarmed and solidified, not into an eagle, but into a crude, lopsided five-pointed star that shot forward and plastered itself across the lead rogue's face. The man was so stunned he just stood there, covered in peanut dust. My laughter echoed through the clearing. His cronies were equally dumbfounded. In that moment of shared bewilderment, my expression shifted. The lazy amusement vanished. With a flick of my finger, I sent out a pulse of pure golden light. It was silent, instantaneous, and absolute. The rogues and their shadow serpent evaporated like dew in the morning sun. Silence fell. Our companions stared at the scattered peanut shells, then at me, now lounging nonchalantly against a tree, then back to Caleb. Their awe was profound, though I suspected it was less for his peanut artillery skills and more for his association with a mentor of my particular brand of insanity. On the ride home in the tin tuna, I stood at my usual spot at the prow. Caleb was quiet behind me. The setting sun bled across the clouds, painting them gold and crimson. I told him without turning around that he'd done a good job today. He mumbled something I couldn't quite hear. I glanced back over my shoulder, a genuine smile touching my lips, the usual mockery absent for once. The light caught in my eyes as I told him he hadn't let his old man down. His breath hitched, and a flush crept up his neck. He ducked his head, muttering that I was his mentor, not his father. I just laughed and turned back to the wind. I told him it was the same difference, a 2-for-1 deal. I was winning. The wind roared in my ears, but I could feel his gaze on my back, and I knew I could feel the frantic, unsteady rhythm of his heart. In that moment, watching the sun sink below the horizon from the deck of a flying fishing boat, I felt a strange warmth spread through my chest. Maybe this wasn't so ridiculous after all. I yelled back at him to hold on tight. Dad was kicking it into high gear. We had peanuts to roast at home. I felt his hand instinctively grab the back of my robe. The tin tuna surged forward, a dented silver bullet breaking through the clouds. His yelp of terror was music to my ears. We came to a screeching halt in front of my dilapidated cabin on Ramshackle Ridge, and Caleb practically fell out, looking pale. He dry-heaved for a moment while I critiqued his weak constitution. He asked what I used to fly before the boat. I gazed wistfully into the distance, recalling my early days. I told him I'd started with a bar stool, graduated to a cast-iron skillet, but found the boat had the best handling and a flat bottom that prevented capsizing. He looked like he regretted ever asking. I ignored his existential crisis and bustled into my chaotic kitchen to roast the victory peanuts, humming a tuneless sea shanty. He leaned against the doorframe, watching as I used my magic to juggle 3 different pans with 3 different seasonings. One was plain salted for me, one was honey roasted for the kid, and the third was a blistering mix of ghost pepper and something vaguely alcoholic that I called the regret. There was an odd domesticity to the scene that made me feel a sudden, sharp pang of something I couldn't name. I shoved a tray of the finished product under his nose, my eyes sparkling, demanding praise. He hesitantly tried a salted one and admitted it was acceptable. Acceptable? I was personally offended. I popped a honey-roasted one into his mouth to prove my culinary genius. He conceded that it was also good. Vindicated, I grinned and gestured to the regret, challenging his manhood. He wisely declined. I called him a coward and tossed one into my own mouth to show him how it was done. 3 seconds later, my face was on fire and I was frantically searching for water, any water, while hopping on one foot. His soft chuckle from the doorway was worth it. I shot him a betrayed look. He just smiled and said I was certainly a true man. The sarcasm was lost in the genuine amusement in his eyes. Later that night, he was mating in my living room, which was more of a shrine to peanut shells and pulp fiction novels. I was in my newly repaired recliner, the one he'd painstakingly reassembled with his aura after I'd broken it, reading the latest installment of Galaxy Smugglers. I kept providing unsolicited commentary on the plot. The hero was an idiot. The villain's motivation was weak. Suddenly, the chair, despite Caleb's repairs, gave way with a final, mournful crack. I went down in a heap, the book landing flat on my face. After a moment of dramatic mourning for my fallen comrade of 300 years, I looked at Caleb. A new opportunity for a pop quiz had just presented itself. I watched, genuinely proud, as he meticulously reassembled the chair again, his control more fluid and confident than before. I squatted beside him, offering useless advice, my breath ruffling his hair. He was so focused, a small bead of sweat trickling down his temple. When he finished, the chair was perfect. I plopped down in it and tested its durability with a vigorous bounce. I tossed him a heavy pouch of gold coins as a reward. He thanked his mentor. I told him to call me Dad. He just sighed. The grand conclave arrived, a tedious affair of posturing and pageantry. When I told Caleb my grand strategy for him was to just go have fun and maybe win me a new footstool, he looked like he wanted to throttle me. I gave him my real advice. If he got into a jam, he should throw peanuts or just declare his opponent was his long-lost father. Confusion, I explained, is a powerful weapon. Our arrival in the tin tuna caused the expected sensation of horrified silence, followed by a tidal wave of whispers. I took a bow. Caleb tried to melt into the boat's aluminum hull. His first match was against Linus Thorne, a prodigy from Onyx Peak known for his ice-cold demeanor and lethally fast attacks. Before Caleb went on stage, I pulled him aside and pressed a small bag into his hand. They were special peanuts, each engraved with a tiny, nearly invisible rune for a flashbang effect. I told him it was tactics. He looked at me with those painfully earnest eyes and asked if it wasn't cheating. I gave him my most wounded look and asked if he didn't trust his dear old dad. He reluctantly pocketed the bag. Linus was good. Too good. Caleb was on the defensive from the first second, dodging a relentless storm of energy bolts. I shouted encouragement from the sidelines, offering helpful tips like go for the groin and use the peanuts. Linus was clearly irritated by my heckling. That momentary distraction was all Caleb needed. He didn't use the trick peanuts. He used a handful of regular ones as a feint, a spray of shells and dust to obscure his real attack, a low, sweeping kick that caught Linus off balance. They exchanged a flurry of blows and broke apart, both breathing heavily. The crowd was stunned. Linus looked furious. He announced he was done playing games and began gathering a terrifying amount of energy for a final, overwhelming assault. My stomach tightened. The kid was good, but that was a killing blow. Caleb stood his ground, his own aura flaring, ready to meet it head-on. He was going to get himself seriously hurt. In his eyes, I saw his trust in me, his belief that I wouldn't lead him astray. I wasn't about to let that trust be rewarded with a memorial service. Before Linus could unleash his attack, a familiar, dented, yellow and silver object shot into the arena from the sidelines. The tin tuna, with a resounding clang, intercepted the energy blast, deflecting it harmlessly into the sky. The boat spun once and landed with a thud on the edge of the stage. Total, absolute silence. Linus stared, aghast. Caleb stared, bewildered. The provost looked like he was finally having that heart attack. I leaped to my feet, yelling at my boat for being a show-off and stealing my kid's thunder. I argued to the sputtering officials that my boat was sentient and fiercely protective. There was no rule against a magical artifact defending its master of its own free will. Linus, fuming but apparently unwilling to argue with the man who flies a sentient fishing boat, forfeited the match. Caleb had won. He walked off the stage in a daze. I slung an arm around him, boasting about my boat's loyalty. I could feel the heat radiating from his face. The rest of the tournament was a blur. Having established our particular brand of chaos, Caleb leaned into it. He fought with a bizarre, unpredictable style that threw everyone off their game, a mix of solid fundamentals and my own brand of nonsense. He made it to the top 10. At the award ceremony, I couldn't contain my pride. When they called his name, I rushed up, swept him into a massive hug, and spun him around. He was my boy, and I was going to brag about him for the next century. He buried his burning face in my shoulder, telling me to put him down. I refused, telling him a father had a right to show off his son. In the middle of the crowded hall, surrounded by stairs, I felt his arms tentatively circle my waist, and I felt that unnamed warmth in my chest bloom into something sharp, bright, and terrifyingly clear. So that's what this was. On the slow ride home in the tin tuna, drifting through the sunset, neither of us spoke. I could feel his gaze on my back. He finally asked, his voice rough, if the boat had really moved on its own. I let out a low chuckle. I told him to guess. He made a sound of exasperation, and I knew he wasn't fooled. I softened, my voice quiet, and said that the details didn't matter. What mattered was that as long as I was around, nobody was going to hurt him. I felt him shift behind me, and a moment later, the hesitant, feather-light touch of his fingers gripping the edge of my robe. My breath caught in my throat. My own ears felt hot. The tin tuna flew on, steady as ever, carrying us toward our strange, ramshackle home. The wind was gentle, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel quite so alone. Ever since the conclave, the way he looked at me had changed. There was an intensity there, a hunger that he tried and failed to hide. It was driving me crazy. He thought I was oblivious. The fool. I was anything but. I was waiting, enjoying the slow, delicious tension. Tonight, the air was cool and smelled of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine. I was lounging in his rocking chair in the yard, casually fanning a tray of 5 spice peanuts I was air-drying on the stone table. I mused aloud that they might need more time, then popped one in my mouth and declared it unsatisfactory. He was sitting nearby, fidgety and distracted, and gave a non-committal grunt of agreement. I accused him of being disrespectful, getting up to press my hand against his forehead, feigning concern that he might have a fever. He recoiled like he'd been burned, his face instantly crimson. He insisted he was fine, just warm. I looked at the cool night sky, then back at his flushed face, and raised a skeptical eyebrow. He deflected, shouting that the peanuts were about to burn, a ridiculous claim since they were air-drying. But I let him have it, turning back to my precious snacks with a dramatic fuss. I could feel his eyes on me. I knew what was happening. I could feel the coiled anticipation in him, the battle he was fighting with himself. I turned back suddenly, holding out a perfectly shaped peanut, offering it to him with a brilliant smile. That smile I knew was his undoing. The last thread of his composure snapped. He lunged forward and his hand closed around my wrist, not the peanut. His palm was searing hot against my skin. His eyes were dark, pupils blown wide. I asked him innocently if he was trying to steal my snack. He stammered that he didn't want the peanut. His voice was a raw whisper. My playful demeanor faded. I didn't pull away. I just watched him, waited. He finally choked it out, the words tearing from him. He thought he was about to commit a great transgression against me. A slow smile spread across my face. I let out a soft, knowing laugh. I called him a fool. With a twist of my wrist, I reversed our grip, my fingers now curled around his. I gently pulled him closer until our faces were inches apart, his ragged breath ghosting across my lips. I told him that with his pitiful amount of courage, this hardly qualified as a transgression. I murmured that I'd thought he had more ambition than this. His brain seemed to have ceased all function. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a husky whisper, and confessed that I had been waiting for my little piglet to finally learn how to root out the truffles in his own backyard. His expression of pure, dumbfounded shock was everything I'd hoped for. He stammered, asking if I had known all along. I told him his eyes gave him away. He looked at me like a starving wolf, and I was not a blind man. He squeezed my hand, his knuckles white, and just breathed my name. I put on a stern face and corrected him. That the word was a release, a prayer, full of all the desperate, beautiful emotion he'd been bottling up. It hit me harder than I expected. A betraying warmth crept up my own neck. I coughed and turned my head slightly, muttering that it was about time. The moonlight illuminated the red tips of my ears. That seemed to be all the courage he needed. He leaned in and pressed a soft, hesitant kiss to the shell of my ear. His lips trailed down my jaw, tracing a line of fire, and finally, tremulously, found mine. The kiss was clumsy and chaste, tasting of 5 spice peanuts and an intoxicating, earnest devotion. For a second, I let him lead. Then, I relaxed, letting my other arm snake around his waist, pulling him flush against me. I took control, deepening the kiss, showing him what a real transgression felt like. The forgotten peanuts on the table bore silent witness as the world narrowed to the space between our lips. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. I rested my forehead against his, my thumb stroking his cheek. His lips were swollen, his eyes dazed and full of a light that mirrored my own. I told him his technique was terrible and would require a great deal of practice. He just gave me a goofy, helpless smile and agreed. He asked his mentor to teach him. I corrected him one last time. He smiled against my lips and asked his dad to teach him. I laughed, a real, happy sound, and sealed the promise with another kiss. Of course, I would teach him for a lifetime,